Now, as I do have quite a lot of Anemones and Ranunculus to start, I have broken the job down into sections. So today I have filled all the trays with compost, watered them, and I'm going to leave them on the floor here tonight just to drain. Once the corms are sown, they will need to be moved up onto my rodent-proof shelving. I am going to have to make a bit of room. Look at all those sweet peas. But I'll have a shift around and make sure that everything is out of harm's way. For example, the cornflowers really don't need to be up there. So you can see I have made a start. I've counted out the ranunculus corms that I would like to sow tomorrow into their bowls, but I'm not going to soak them until the morning. They only take a few hours. So I'll get up in the morning, before I have my cup of tea, I will fill these bowls up with water. The anemones, however, take longer to rehydrate. So I'm going to take the empty bowls and the packets into the house. And then tonight, before I go to bed, I will put the anemones in to soak. And then tomorrow, about lunchtime, everything should be rehydrated and ready to start at the same time. I've got the blue and white and a pastel here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to soak one bag of each and then keep one bag of each so I can give you a comparison in the morning. So here's the blue and white going in. Don't forget your label, you won't remember. Here is the pastel. And wait till tomorrow morning, you will be astonished. So fast forward to the next morning, and here are my corms that have been soaking overnight in a bowl of water. They've swollen up so much. I'm going to show you because you won't quite believe it. So these are the pastel, which I've got soaking in a bowl here. There we go. I open these up here, put them out into my hand. So these were how they started, and this is how they finished. I'm going to put them in my hand so you can see properly. There we go. What a difference. What a difference that has made. So these are the dehydrated corms, and this is after they've had a bath. And then this is 3 weeks later. So I've got a tray here. This side is the blue and white, and this side is the pastel. Some of them came up quicker than others, but they are all awake now. We've got 100% germination. And literally, I've been filming this segment over the last couple of days, and every time I look at them, they've grown even more. Got myself some fresh water because I'm going to soak another 5 corms. This is a 15 cell tray, so I need another 5 corms to fill this up. But I just wanted you to see the difference between the soaked and the unsoaked corms first. So I'll sow the first 10 and I'll come back tomorrow and do the final 5. So just like we did with our ranunculus corms, I'll start here so you can see. I'm just going to dib a little hole. And then with anemones, it's pointy side down. The top of the corm is slightly flat with an impression, can you see? That's where the shoots will come from. And the roots will actually come from the bottom. So they're slightly different to the ranunculus corms. Let me just tap that in and then just cover it over. You can leave them uncovered a little bit if you want to just check on them, because it's best to not keep lifting them out. They are going to take longer than your ranunculus, don't forget. So if you want to leave them slightly uncovered, just so you can make sure they're waking up, then that's fine. And then you can cover them up later on. So again, this is the top and this is the bottom, and you just drop them in the hole. This one's a bit of a funny shape, but again, can you see that little impression on the top? Don't forget your label. I'm going to leave these like this with them slightly uncovered because I am coming back tomorrow with the final 5, and then you can give the tray a really good water and then pop it up on the shelf, a rodent-proof shelf in the greenhouse. For goodness sake, do not put it on the floor. I did that the very first year I started growing, and I came back and the tray had been completely cleared. So don't do that with your precious corms. And then onto our blue and white. We tip out the corms that we started with. There we go. And then these are the corms. You can see, look how much. You can't really tell when they're in the water, can you? But look how much they've swollen up. I've only got 9 because one of them got caught in the packet and I've just found it. So I've got to soak an extra one tonight, but 9's fine to get started. I just wanted you to be able, oopsie daisies, to be able to see. Nearly done it again, look. You don't really need to dip a little hole. You can just push them in as long as your compost is nice and soft. Go. So they're just sitting below the soil surface. The reason they're below the soil surface is because that just keeps the corm nice and moist, and that will continue the waking up process. I've marked where I've got up to in the tray. So I've done 9 here, so I've got these 6 to do, and I've done 10 here, so I've got these 5 to do, and I've just put the label at the spot where the last corm went in, so I know where I am. And now I'm going to give them a water and then put them on the shelf in the greenhouse. There we go, and then lift them up onto your rodent-proof shelf. Now please do not sow corms in December or January. The light levels are too low and it's too cold and they won't wake up. You'll risk just rotting your corms off in cold wet compost. If you're sowing them in a couple of weeks' time, if you're just catching up and it's cold in the greenhouse, then maybe start them off in the kitchen and bring them down to the greenhouse as soon as they start to emerge. The Anemones and Ranunculus, although they're both corms and they're both started at the same time, they are different plants. So the Ranunculus will come up relatively quickly, very satisfyingly quickly, where the Anemones will take a bit longer. I've got some in the greenhouse which I'll show you in a moment that I have tested, so I can tell you exactly how long the anemones take to come up. If you find that your anemones are not coming up in the greenhouse, it could be that you're watching the videos a bit later and it's a bit cold in the greenhouse. So in that case, if you don't see any movement after a couple of weeks, bring them into the house until they pop up and then take them back down to the greenhouse. Just be really careful if they haven't started shooting yet that you don't overwater them. Now I've got here a little pot of anemones. This has been growing now for 2 weeks, so it's 14 days since I soaked it, and you can see that we're just now starting to see the first signs of life emerging. They do take longer than your ranunculus, so don't panic if your ranunculus come up fairly quickly and you're still peering at the soil surface with the anemones. They do take a little bit longer, and the idea is that you want to keep these corms moist enough to continue the waking up process, because if they dry back out again, they'll go back into dormancy, but not too wet that you end up soaking and rotting them before they've had a chance to put their roots down and their shoots up. Now I don't want you to disturb your anemones, but I'm going to take one for the team here and I'm just going to tip him out so that you can have a look to see what you should be expecting. There we go, looks like a little alien, doesn't he? A little alien coming out of an alien spaceship. I don't know where I get these ideas from, honestly. But you can see here the roots, little white roots are coming out of the bottom. The corm is nice and firm, so it's not been overwatered, but it is still moist enough to continue the waking up process. And we're just starting to see the first signs of the foliage emerging. Right, so let's put this guy back in his pot. Put the compost back in. There we go. And then I'm very gently just putting the soil all around so that I don't damage any of the delicate little shoots. Okay, just give it a little tap, and then I'm not pressing or touching. And your label. Lovely. So by contrast, this is a ranunculus corm which was started on the very same day, soaked on the same day, planted on the same day, and you can see how much further ahead he is than the anemones. So you do just need to be a little bit more patient. Now, can you see how green this canopy of leaves is? And that is because it has plenty of light. You can also see that the plant is very stocky and the leaves are starting to open up. If it didn't have enough light, not only would the foliage be paler, but you'd probably notice that it's looking a little bit leggy, and it shouldn't be. So it's vital at this point that your ranunculus is not in the kitchen on the windowsill. You need to bring it out into a light, bright location, because you can't pinch ranunculus or anemones. They shoot from the base, so there's nothing to pinch. So make sure that you have enough light. There is lots of information in your handbook on making sure that you don't get any leggy linders. By now, week 3, you should be seeing plenty of action above the soil surface. Don't be fooled if you've just got a few tiny shoots. Below the soil surface, it is all going on. I've dug this one up to show you so you can see. It's exactly the same. But what lies beneath? My goodness me. What a cracker. Information on growing anemones, it's page 20 onwards in your Anemone and Ranunculus handbook. You should find that your anemones and ranunculus are looking a lot happier now it's a bit cooler. It looks warm again next weekend, so you can pick your anemones once they start to open. So this is fine, and they last ages. They've got a very good vase life if you pick them when they're young. If you pick them like this, they only last a few days, but it doesn't matter. If you leave them in the garden, however, can you see how much taller they get? So they keep growing as they open. So do what I do, pick a few, leave a few.